Oh, hey! So, way back in 2025, when I first introduced the lessons on the labor theory of value, I got a lot of really great responses. Many of you responded with some really kind of direct challenges to the concepts that I was introducing. And I think that is fantastic. I think that's great. Very often when we do these video lessons, they tend to be kind of one-way streets. I talk at you, you watch, you scroll away when you get bored. But when you actually get to comment and I actually get to respond, well, now we're actually having a conversation, and I think a lot more learning goes on during these conversations than when it's just a one-way street of me yakking at you. So keep the comments going, keep the challenges going. I do want to cover everything that you guys push forward. So because those are the things that you're interested in. So let's do that. So what I decided to do, I had a plan for these videos. So what I figured I would do is I'd actually just add some videos to the lesson addressing some of the challenges and critiques that you guys brought forward in the comments. I may be opening Pandora's box here, but I think this is a good process. The first challenge that I want to bring out is what I want to call, well, the bad artist problem. So many of you pointed out that maybe there really isn't that direct relationship between labor and value. So let's take a look at that a little bit more in depth. Let's say I'm an artist, right? And I am going to make a painting and I'm going to try to sell this painting, right? So what do? Is I go and I get some paints, I get the canvas, I get my setup going, and I paint this painting. So I've put labor into the painting, right? My labor is there. I've put time, I've put energy, I've put a certain amount of skill into making the painting, right? But nobody buys it. No! Nobody buys it. So then the question is, did I add value? Well, that's a really good question. And to really understand the answer, let's talk about two different kinds of value that we may be talking about. The first is use value. Did I produce something with use value? Maybe I did. You can put it on the wall. It's decorative, right? I could use it to cover a hole or a stain even at its worst, right? So arguably I've produced something that is useful. But does that mean that it has what we call exchange value? Exchange value is something that is a little bit more measurable. It is a measure of how much is somebody willing to give up to get this painting, to have this painting, right? And in capitalist systems, usually what we're giving up is money, which makes exchange a lot more calculable, a lot more objective. So if somebody sees this painting and they're willing to pay $100 for it, then the value that I added, once you subtract out all of the materials, the value that I added is whatever that subtraction is, $100 minus what I actually spent to put into the painting. That's the exchange value. That is the value that has been added. And presumably I get to put that in my pocket. But what if nobody wants the painting? Did I add value? And the answer, economically speaking, is no. Value wasn't added. If nobody wants to exchange something, then there's no exchange value. Now, in Marxist terms and leftist terms, they use the term that in order for something to have value, there must be a socially necessary product or socially necessary service that one is willing to purchase. I don't like that term. I don't like that term. Socially necessary is more of a value term, and it gets kind of messy. You know, there are plenty of things that I think that people buy that I don't believe are socially necessary things, right? But people are still willing to buy them. So I like the more economic term, the term demand. If there is no demand for the thing that you have put your labor into, you did not add value. You did not add value. Now, Now, this is a really interesting way of looking at the relationship between labor and value. We have to have a better idea of what is this relationship between labor and value, because you see, labor is something that is measurable. You can look at how much time I spent on this painting. You could even get a calculation of how much energy that I put into this painting, and maybe even a certain level of how much skill that I put into the painting, right? It is something that is more objective. It is calculable. But value isn't. Value is applied ex post facto, right? It's applied after the fact, and value is a social construct. It is what people perceive they are willing to give up to get the painting. So it's a different thing. And what we have to acknowledge is, yes, the relationship between labor and value is kind of a one-way street. Labor does not necessarily produce something of value. But in order to have something of value, you had to have labor. And that's where the value of this particular theory comes in, is looking at this relationship between labor and value, and specifically between the owners of capital and the workers. So that reveals another component of this bad artist problem. Was the artist an owner or a worker? And I would argue that in this scenario, the artist is more analogous to the owner of capital than to the worker. The artist went out and what? Invested in the means of production, the brush, the paints, the canvas. So the artist actually is the owner of the means of production in this case, the capital. And the artist used that capital to produce a painting, and it didn't turn out that that painting was worth anything. So really, the artist is more analogous to, see, a sole proprietor or a small business owner who invests in capital, and it turns out that investment was a bad investment, and I don't get what I put into it. So one of the things that this does is that this highlights is the relationship between labor and value is the kind of a critique of the canard of the old saying, all you have to do is work hard and you will be successful. Well, that's clearly not true. Actually, what you have to do is you have to work hard at something that is perceived as socially necessary. Or, in other words, you have to work hard at something for which there is a demand. Success is not an automatic outcome from hard work, just like value is not necessarily an automatic outcome from labor. So I hope this clarified this challenge to the labor theory of value. Next week, I'm hoping to put a video together on what I'm calling the secretary's dilemma. So if you like this video, if you like the series, if you're looking forward to the next few videos coming, please subscribe, please share, add your comments. I love them. You got to understand videos like this that look at things that could be considered a left-wing, although this is not necessarily a left-wing theory, that could be considered a left-wing theory, a left-wing point of view. These things don't get picked up by the Orwell bot algorithms and spread around. These things kind of get put on the bottom of the barrel. So if you like this, please do me a favor and share and spread the word, and let's try to overcome the censorship of the Orwell bots. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing.